Imagine this. You are standing on the edge of a vast, silent desert. The sun beats down, not with warmth, but with an indifferent, cosmic intensity. Before you, stretching to an impossible horizon, lies an infinite expanse of sand, each grain a moment of your life, a choice made or a path not taken. Behind you stands a single, colossal wall, seamless and smooth, reaching so high into the azure sky that it seems to hold up the heavens themselves. This wall has been your entire world. It is the architecture of your safety, the provider of your shade, the silent witness to your every joy and sorrow. It is the source of all your rules, your beliefs, your identity. Every person you have ever known lives within its shadow. You have never seen the other side. You have been taught that beyond it lies only chaos, madness, and a terrifying, formless oblivion. The wall is your protector. It is your God. But one day, a crack appears. Not a dramatic fissure born of some great cataclysm, but a hairline fracture near the base, so subtle you almost miss it. Through this tiny fissure, a single unfamiliar scent drifts on the wind, a scent of salt, of wild things, of a vast and open space. It is a scent of freedom, and it is utterly terrifying. For the first time, you are forced to confront a paradox that has lain dormant in your heart your entire life. The very structure that guarantees your safety is also the absolute limit of your existence. The wall that keeps the monsters out also keeps you in. Your cage is indistinguishable from your sanctuary. This realization does not arrive like a gentle dawn, but like a thief in the night, stealing the comfort of your sleep. You begin to see the wall for what it is, a monument to fear. Not the heroic fear of a charging beast or a falling sky, but a quiet, insidious fear. The fear of being wrong. The fear of being alone. The fear of being judged. The fear of stepping out from the collective shadow and being fully, blindingly seen. You start to notice how this fear has shaped everything. The art on the walls of your home, the gentle cadence of your conversations, the carefully curated ambitions you hold for your children. All of it, a form of prayer to the God of safety, all of it designed to reinforce the wall to plaster over the cracks. And so, the great question begins to haunt you, whispered in the space between heartbeats. What if the tales of chaos and oblivion were just that? Tales. Stories told to keep you from ever questioning the wall's authority. What if the greatest danger wasn't what lies beyond, but the slow, spiritual death happening within its suffocating embrace? You look at the faces of your neighbors, your friends, your family. You see the same quiet desperation in their eyes, the same unspoken yearning for that scent on the wind. They distract themselves with routines, with trivialities, with the frantic accumulation of things, anything to avoid looking at the crack, to avoid acknowledging the desert that calls to them in their dreams. Is this living? This meticulously organized, predictable, and sanitized existence? Is the primary purpose of a human life merely to avoid pain, to minimize risk, to reach the end of one's days with the fewest possible scars? Or is there something more? Something that requires not the reinforcement of walls, but the courage to face the vast, terrifying, and magnificent emptiness of the desert? What if the meaning you have been searching for is not etched into the stone of your prison, but is waiting to be created in the boundless sands on the other side? This question becomes an obsession, a fire in your gut. You realize that to continue living as you have is to choose a death of the soul long before the body fails. The scent from the crack is no longer just a curiosity, it is a summons. And you are left with a choice that feels more real than any you have ever made: to die safely in the shade of the wall, or to truly live by stepping out into the unforgiving light of the unknown. How did we become so enthralled by our own limitations, so in love with the very chains that prevent us from becoming who we might be? What is the nature of this hidden architecture of fear? And how has it become the silent god of the modern world? This enchantment with our own limitations, this quiet love affair with our chains, is not an accident of history or a flaw in our individual characters. It is the result of a profound and ancient bargain, a deal struck in the deepest recesses of the human psyche. The wall was not built by a tyrant from without. It was meticulously constructed from within, brick by agonizing brick, by our own ancestors, and we have been fortifying it ever since. The hidden problem is not that we are afraid of the monsters in the desert. The hidden problem is that we are terrified of the godlike power sleeping within ourselves. The power to create, to destroy, and to define reality on our own terms. Absolute freedom, we sense in our bones, is a terrifying responsibility. It is the dizziness of standing on a precipice with no guardrails, and so we invented the guardrails and called them virtue. The great, rebellious spirit of Friedrich Nietzsche diagnosed this condition with brutal precision. He called it the herd instinct. For Nietzsche, society, in its quest for stability and predictability, doesn't just discourage the exceptional individual, it actively demonizes them. The person who dares to smell the scent from beyond the wall, the one who questions the received wisdom, who listens to the dictates of their own heart, is branded as dangerous, as selfish, as heretical, as evil. The herd establishes a slave morality, a system of values that praises everything that serves the collective and weakens the individual. Pity, humility, obedience, patience. It champions the tame, the predictable, the sheep. Why? Because the strong, untamable wolf is a threat to the flock's placid existence. The wall, in Nietzschean terms, is the physical manifestation of this morality. It promises safety, but its price is greatness. Its gospel is comfort, but its consequence is mediocrity. It keeps you safe from the desert, yes, but it also ensures you will never learn the strength of your own legs. This isn't merely a philosophical abstraction. It is a psychological prison. The Danish thinker Søren Kierkegaard saw this from a different angle, one of faith and dread. He called the wall the crowd and declared it the ultimate source of untruth. To be an individual, for Kierkegaard, was the most difficult task a human being could undertake. It requires a leap of faith into the abyss of one's own subjectivity, to stand alone before God or the void, without the comforting buffer of public opinion. The anxiety this produces, the existential angst, is so overwhelming that most people flee from it. They run back to the crowd, to the wall, and lose themselves in its anonymous certainty. They fall into what Kierkegaard called the most common form of despair, the despair of not willing to be oneself. They choose to be a generic someone, rather than a specific, unique, and therefore terrifyingly responsible I. And what a tempting offer the wall makes. Fyodor Dostoevsky captured the sheer seductive power of this bargain in the parable of the Grand Inquisitor. In the story, Christ returns to Earth during the Spanish Inquisition and is arrested. The Inquisitor visits him in his cell and delivers a chilling monologue. He tells Christ that by giving humanity freedom of choice, he has doomed them to misery. People do not want freedom, the Inquisitor argues. They crave security. They want someone to take away the terrible burden of conscience and tell them what is right and what is wrong. There is nothing more seductive for man than his freedom of conscience, the Inquisitor says. But there is nothing that is a greater cause of suffering. The Church, the wall, has taken that freedom back, and in its place, offered miracle, mystery, and authority. It has given the people bread and circuses in exchange for their souls, and they are grateful for it. They are happy to be slaves, as long as they are well fed and untroubled by the great, unanswerable questions of existence. This is the psychological root of our fear. The Grand Inquisitor lives inside each of us. He is the voice that whispers, "Don't risk it. Stay where it's safe. Let someone else decide. Who are you to create your own values? Who are you to question the wall?" He is the architect of what the 20th century psychologist Erich Fromm would later call our escape from freedom. As humanity shed the chains of overt political and religious tyranny, we found ourselves naked and alone in the cosmos, and the sheer boundlessness of our freedom became a new source of anxiety. So we forged new chains: conformity to the market, submission to bureaucracy, the quiet desperation of keeping up with the Joneses. We traded the overt wall of the past for 1,000 invisible fences. The problem, then, is not that we are weak. The problem is that we are fleeing from a strength we dare not claim. We have been conditioned, philosophically and psychologically, to believe that the highest good is to be a well-adjusted brick in the wall, rather than the lonely, sovereign creator out in the desert. But this trade, this grand bargain for security, comes at a cost far greater than we can imagine. It is a slow-acting poison, and its unseen consequences are corroding the very fabric of our reality. This poison, this grand bargain for security, operates in the shadows of your life. It is the unseen guest at every dinner party, the silent partner in every business decision, the ghost that shares your bed. Its consequences are not loud or dramatic, like the cataclysms you were taught to fear. They are quiet, corrosive, and infinitely more devastating. They are the termites hollowing out the beams of your house, the slow creep of rust on the engine of your soul. You feel it not as a sharp pain, but as a dull, pervasive ache, a low-grade hum of meaninglessness that persists even when everything on the surface appears perfect. The first and most profound consequence is the death of your authentic self. You wake up one day, perhaps in your 30s, perhaps in your 50s, and you look in the mirror and fail to recognize the person staring back. You have meticulously followed the script. You have the right career, the right partner, the right home, the right opinions. You have become a masterful actor in the play of your own life, but you have forgotten who you are when the curtain falls. This creates a terrifying internal dissonance. You smile when you are expected to smile, grieve when you are expected to grieve, but beneath it all, there is a void. This is the price of the wall. In exchange for not having to create your own meaning, you are given a pre-packaged identity that fits you like a stranger's coat. It keeps you warm, but it is not yours. The neurological basis for this is terrifyingly simple. Your brain, in its relentless pursuit of efficiency, automates conformity. The neural pathways of prescribed behavior become deep, well-worn trenches, while the paths of originality and spontaneity are left to overgrow with weeds. Your brain literally rewires itself for inauthenticity, making it progressively harder to even hear the whispers of your own true desires. The second consequence is the atrophy of your spiritual strength. Courage, resilience, creativity, and the will to overcome are not static virtues. They are muscles. They grow only when placed under strain. The wall, by its very nature, is an environment designed to eliminate all meaningful strain. It shields you from the terror of the unknown, the pain of failure, the judgment of radical self-expression. In doing so, it condemns your spirit to a life of perpetual inactivity. You become spiritually frail. Then, when a true crisis inevitably breaches the wall, the death of a loved one, a sudden illness, a profound loss, you find you have no strength to draw upon. You have spent your life on a spiritual couch, and now you are being asked to climb a mountain. We see this all around us, a culture obsessed with trigger warnings and safe spaces, not to protect from genuine trauma, but to insulate from the discomfort of opposing ideas. We are creating a generation of minds so brittle they cannot withstand the slightest intellectual friction. This is the status quo bias made manifest, our cognitive aversion to anything that disrupts our comfortable equilibrium. We have mistaken comfort for strength, and the result is a deep, systemic weakness. But perhaps the most insidious consequence of all is the one Nietzsche called resentment. This is where the poison turns venomous. The person who has sacrificed their own potential, who has denied their own calling to remain safely behind the wall, does not simply fade away into quiet desperation. They become resentful. They develop a sour, vindictive envy towards anyone who possesses the courage they lack. They see the artist living a passionate, chaotic life and call them irresponsible. They see the entrepreneur taking a bold risk and secretly wish for their failure. They see the free spirit who travels the world with nothing but a backpack and label them a drifter, a hedonist, a fool. This resentment is the psychological defense mechanism of a soul that cannot bear to look at its own cowardice. It cloaks its envy in the language of morality. I am not bitter, it insists. I am virtuous. I am not caged. I am responsible. This is the slave morality in action, attempting to pull everyone down to its own level, to tear the wings from anyone who dares to fly, because the sight of their flight is a torturous reminder of its own grounded state. These consequences weave together to create a silent societal crisis. We are living in an invisible prison, a panopticon of mutual judgment, where the fear of being seen as different keeps us all marching in lockstep. We scroll through curated lives online, feeding our resentment and deepening our own sense of inadequacy. We anesthetize the ache of our inauthenticity with endless consumption, entertainment, and distraction. Anything to avoid the deafening silence in which we might hear the call of the desert. The unseen trap is that the longer you stay behind the wall, the more the wall builds itself inside of you. It becomes your internal monologue, your very conscience. You become your own jailer. The bargain you made for safety has led to a reality where you are neither safe nor free. You are simply numb. The situation is untenable. This slow suicide of the soul is not living. So how does one even begin to rebel against a prison that has no visible bars, and whose warden is oneself? How do you fight an enemy that has taken up residence in your own mind?
The rebellion does not begin with a sledgehammer against the stone. It does not start with a rallying cry or a call to arms. To declare war on the wall is to remain obsessed with it, to define your life in opposition to it, to grant it a power it does not deserve. The rebellion begins with a whisper. It is a quiet, internal, and cataclysmic shift in perspective. You fight the enemy in your mind not by attacking it, but by making it obsolete. You break free from the prison not by blowing a hole in the wall, but by realizing that you were never imprisoned to begin with. The cage door has always been open. You simply have to turn around and walk out. How? By learning the secret that the architects of the wall have spent millennia trying to suppress. You must stop treating fear as a stop sign and start treating it as a compass. The fear you feel is not a warning to retreat. It is a signal. It is the needle on a compass, quivering and pointing directly toward the experiences you need most for your own growth. It points toward the difficult conversation, the bold creative act, the leap into the unknown. It marks the precise boundary of your current self. To live without fear does not mean to be fearless. That is the state of a fool or a stone. To live without being governed by fear means to move towards it, to use it as your guide to the frontiers of your own potential. The rebellion, then, is the conscious and deliberate act of walking in the direction of the fear. This is where we unearth Nietzsche's most potent, most dangerous idea, amor fati, the love of fate. This is not passive resignation. It is not shrugging your shoulders and saying, "It is what it is." That is the language of the herd. Amor fati is an active, passionate, joyful embrace of everything that constitutes your life, the triumphs and the catastrophes, the ecstasy and the agony, the beauty and the horror. It is looking at the totality of your existence, with all its scars, all its mistakes, all its suffering, and saying, "Yes, I will it to be so. I would not have it any other way. In fact, I will it to be so again and again for all eternity." This single idea is the ultimate solvent for the wall. The wall's entire value proposition is that it will protect you from the negative aspects of life. It promises to shield you from pain, failure, and chaos. But what if you no longer wish to be shielded? What if you recognize that the pain was your greatest teacher? That the failure was the crucible in which your strength was forged? That the chaos was the raw material from which you created your own order? If you can truly love your fate, the wall loses all of its power. It becomes a relic, a monument to a fear you no longer worship. This love of fate is not a feeling you wait for. It is a discipline you practice. The first act is what Nietzsche called the revaluation of all values. You must place the morality of the herd on trial. Take every value you hold dear, your definition of success, of goodness, of a meaningful life, and ask the terrifying question, is this mine? Did you choose this value, or was it programmed into you by your culture, your education, your parents? You must become a philosophical legislator for your own life, casting out the inherited laws that were designed to keep you small and safe, and authoring a new code, one that serves your highest aspirations, not your deepest fears. The second act is the practice of voluntary hardship. You must intentionally build the spiritual muscles that have atrophied in the comfort of the enclosure. You must seek out controlled doses of the discomfort you have been conditioned to avoid. Sign up for the public speaking course that makes your stomach churn. Take the cold shower. Travel to a place where you know no one and do not speak the language. Initiate the conversation that could lead to rejection. Each time you deliberately face a lesser fear and survive, and you always survive, you are rewriting the code in your nervous system. You are teaching your animal brain that the social and psychological threats it equates with death are, in fact, illusions. You are building resilience, anti-fragility, the quiet confidence of someone who knows they can withstand the storm because they have sailed into it willingly. Finally, and most crucially, you must forge your own why. The philosopher's words echo through the ages. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. The wall offers a shallow, collective why. Be safe. Be comfortable. Don't make waves. Fit in. This is the why of an animal, not a god in the making. Your rebellion requires you to excavate or create a why so profound, so deeply personal, that it renders all the hows, the suffering, the struggle, the fear secondary. This why is your great work, your life's purpose, your art. It is the novel you must write, the discovery you must make, the truth you must embody. With a powerful enough why, the desert ceases to be a barren wasteland and becomes the necessary landscape for your quest. The fear of the journey becomes fuel for the fire of your ambition. You are no longer a prisoner escaping a wall. You are a creator, a pioneer, marching toward your horizon. This is how you break free. You do not tear the wall down. You simply outgrow it. You turn your gaze from its oppressive shadow toward the light of your own defining purpose, and you start walking.
The journey into the desert, this rebellion of the self, feels like the final chapter. You have learned to use fear as a compass. You have embraced your fate, and you have begun the great work of forging your own why. You are walking, creating, becoming. It feels like victory. But here, in the vast open expanse, lies the last and most subtle illusion, the final ghost-like remnant of the wall. It is the belief that you are walking towards something. It is the quiet hope that somewhere over the horizon lies an oasis of ultimate peace, a finish line where the struggle ceases, a permanent state of enlightened fearlessness where the work is finally done. This belief, the belief in a final destination, is the last lie of the fear-based mind. It has simply projected the idea of safety from the enclosure behind you to a promised land ahead of you. The goal is still escape. The paradigm is still linear. The ultimate truth is far more radical, far more terrifying, and infinitely more beautiful. The ultimate truth is that there is no desert to cross. There is no final oasis. The wall and the desert are a single landscape, and you are not merely a traveler within it. You are its creator and its eternal inhabitant. To grasp this, you must be willing to entertain what Nietzsche called the heaviest weight, the ultimate test of your amor fati. Imagine that one day, or one night, a demon were to steal into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more, and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh, and everything unutterably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence. Imagine the demon telling you that the spider in the moonlight, the trees, and you yourself in this moment will all recur eternally. There is no escape, no reward, no oblivion, just this life, exactly as it is, forever. How would you react? The thought would likely crush you. To be condemned to repeat your moments of shame, your deepest regrets, your most agonizing heartbreaks, your tedious, boring Mondays for all eternity? This is the vision of hell for the spirit that still secretly wishes for an escape, for the soul that still bargains with reality, hoping to endure the bad parts to get to the good ones. This is the reaction of the person who still lives in the shadow of the wall, even if they are 1,000 miles out in the sand. But what if you could hear this demonic prophecy and not collapse? What if you could look the demon in the eyes and declare, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? This is the final, most powerful realization. To achieve a state of being where you would not only accept the eternal recurrence of your life, but would will it, joyfully, as the ultimate affirmation of your existence. This is the ultimate secret to living without fear. It redefines the very purpose of your life. The goal is no longer to achieve a future state of happiness or success. The goal is to live this moment, right now, in such a way that you would want to experience it again and again forever. Suddenly, the calculus of your choices shifts entirely. The fear of making a mistake vanishes because every mistake becomes a necessary brushstroke in the eternal masterpiece of your life. The distinction between joy and suffering blurs. The moment of profound failure is not something to be avoided, but a note of dissonance so essential to the chord of your triumph that you would not erase it for anything. You need the agonizing struggle to give meaning to the victory. You need the heartbreak to understand the depth of love. You wouldn't cut the tragic scenes from your favorite film, for they are what make the ending resonate with such power. Your life is that film. Living with this truth means that you stop trying to get through the undesirable moments of life. You learn to live in them, to find the value, the lesson, the beauty in their harshness, because they are as much a part of your eternity as your moments of bliss. You are no longer building a resume for some final judgment. You are composing a symphony that will be played on a loop for all time. Your only task is to make it a symphony you would want to hear. This is the ultimate freedom. It is not the freedom from fear, pain, or suffering. It is the freedom to weave them into a life so meaningful, so authentic, so completely your own, that the thought of its infinite repetition is the highest joy. Look around you. The wall of fear is the desire for a life you would not want to repeat. The desert is the illusion that you can escape to a different one. The truth is that you are here, in this moment, eternally. The only question that matters now is this: what will you do, right now, to make the eternal recurrence of this moment not a curse, but a blessing? The choice is yours, and it is a choice you will make again and again, forever.